Ah! Get that around there. Okay. And we're back. Part 3. And if you see me dip off camera, I'm eating some lunch because I'm hungry. And I have a schedule to film. I also get hungry. And I like to snack. And some people don't like that. Sorry, but I got to stay alive to make these videos. There you go. So, let's get into part 3. Shall we? Ow.
Yet it was also a time when scientific curiosity was applauded. The ancient writings of Greek scholars being translated into Arabic and thus saved from oblivion. It was a time of great literacy, perhaps the most literate society the world had ever seen.
Nice.
Due to the importation of paper technology from China, a revolution akin to the printing press.
I remember the video where the Islamic fighters fought the Chinese and got paper, which I thought was it was such a small footnote in that battle, but it was such a giant cool thing. It's a lot of ink spilled on that paper, bro. Or you were doodling. Oh, I can't say what that looks like. Yeah, I can't say. It's a very inappropriate picture, though. Because it could be a woman, and that could be her legs, and that's her body, and that's her head. And this would not be her arms. Let's get in with the video.
It was also a time of incredible engineering achievements, exemplified by the impressive road system through Iraq to Mecca, conceived by Zubaydah, one of Harun's wives. And thus, when dynasties and states did eventually break away, they were still hugely influenced by the culture of those early Abbasid caliphs. Harun al-Rashid had been born in the city of Ray sometime in the mid-760s. He was the son of al-Mahdi, the third Abbasid caliph, and al-Khayjaran, a former slave girl from Yemen turned influential dynast. She was a queen in all but name, who would greatly influence events during the reigns of her husband and son. Harun began his career out on the borderlands of Anatolia, dispatched there by his father to learn the art of war with his mentor, Yahya the Barmakid.
That's pretty impressive that a slave girl will go on to be a princess. That's impressive to me.
His older brother al-Hadi had been due to become the next caliph, and Harun perhaps faced a life in the military. In 785, however, when al-Mahdi died on a hunting trip, a purge began, perhaps instigated by al-Hadi's manipulating.
Is there any evidence that him dying on a hunting trip, it was an accident or more? Because this is the second time they've said that about him, and I wanted to ask the first time. I think it was in the first video.
Viziers, and Yahya was imprisoned.
I want to go back
in September.
Sorry, I just want to go back because I did kind of cut him off when he was talking. And I just want to kind of make sure I heard everything. Sorry.
Next caliph, and Harun perhaps faced a life in the military. In 785, however, when al-Mahdi died on a hunting trip, a purge began, perhaps instigated by al-Hadi's manipulating viziers, and Yahya was imprisoned. In September 786, however, al-Hadi died in somewhat mysterious circumstances, making the way clear for Harun to succeed him.
Huh.
Yahya was immediately released and Harun able to take control of the state. Under the tutelage of his mentor, Harun began his reign by appointing very able ministers, promoted not by familial connection.
Sorry, I had to swallow my food. I'm eating pizza rolls. If you want to go make some and eat some with me.
By familial connection, but by ability. Essentially, an army of civil servants who would run the empire for him, and according to most historians, greatly improved the quality of life of the people. Due to the overwhelming military superiority of the army, regular tributes were paid by numerous foreign rulers directly to the Caliph, and these funds were used on architecture, the arts, and a luxurious life at court. Baghdad continued to flourish, becoming the most splendid city of its period. Yet Harun wasn't content with living in the city founded by his grandfather. He had greater ambitions. In a tradition that would again be emulated by his successors, Harun began work on a new imperial capital, essentially a forward military command base near the Byzantine frontier. Construction on Raqqa had first began in 771, but under Harun it became a priority. He would spend the majority of the rest of his reign there, taking his military duties extremely seriously. Before becoming Caliph, the young prince Harun had, along with his Barmakid teachers, already led campaigns against the Caliphate's traditional enemy, the Eastern Roman Empire, in 780 and again in 782.
Isn't that where, back in the days, it was Constantinople, but it's Istanbul. Istanbul now? Istanbul? Is that right? Istanbul? Istanbul. Your people are either screaming yes or no. What do you... Istanbul. Yes, that's right. Is that right? Let's pretend it's right. Is that where it is? Because everyone seemed to fight over Constantinople. Am I saying that right? Constantinople? People used to love to fight over that. Okay. Just a side note, sorry.
The latter expedition had been a huge undertaking, even reaching the Asian suburbs of Constantinople before turning back. Yet, other enemies existed too. Syria was still a hotbed for Umayyad sympathisers, which may have been one of the reasons for relocating his court to nearby Raqqa. Egypt saw its fair share of uprisings too, as did Yemen and Arabia, mostly against corrupt regional officials. The ever-present threat of Kharijites, religious fanatics, flared up every so often, and of course, revolts in Persia happened too. In 794, Harun essentially handed over state affairs to his mentor Yahya, who in many ways became the public face to the secretive, closed-off Caliph. Even before this time, as shown in detail by the 10th century historian al-Masudi, the glittering and cultivated Persian dynasty had dominated at court. From around 797, however, military supporters of al-Harun began to worry about the immense influence enjoyed by the Barmakids. Whereas official Abbasid policy had always been to destroy their enemies at the slight hint of rebellion, the Barmakids sought to come to terms with bitter foes, such as the Alids, to seek peaceful terms rather than pursuing the never-ending blood feud. By 803, according to al-Masudi, having arrived unannounced to talk with the Caliph for the last time, Yahya had overreached himself. Despite being some of Harun's best friends from childhood, the Barmakids had to go. In 803, apparently out of the blue, Harun ordered the immediate deaths of his former mentor Yahya and his son Jafar, one of his closest childhood friends and partner in the Arabian Nights stories. The fall of the Barmakids, a fable that would be repeated for centuries to come, neatly outlines the immense and total power held by caliphs at this time. In the years that followed, some said they were destroyed by caliphal whim, others by the weight of their own hubris. The last years of Harun's reign were spent largely at war, or preparing for war at his new base of Raqqa. Throughout his entire reign, most summers had seen annual expeditions against the Byzantines in one form or another. Though most weren't aimed at actual territorial expansion, and tactical successes were modest, the largest Abbasid military expeditions ever raised against the Byzantines were fought during Harun's reign. The largest of which, in 806, he is said to have brought together 135,000 men, many of them volunteers eager to go to holy war. Nevertheless, these expeditions into Anatolia were largely ceremonial, often called prestige campaigns by later scholars. Like the regular yearly pilgrimage to Mecca known as the Hajj, they were undertaken in order to maintain the status quo of Islamic supremacy, and to keep any rebels and the Byzantines in check. In truth, the caliphs had enough on their hands, governing the territories they already had without having to seize new ones. Unrest still regularly flared up in Yemen, Arabia, Daylem in the mountainous southern shores of the Caspian Sea, and various other areas of Iran and the East. In faraway northwestern Africa, the Idrisid dynasty in Morocco had begun to self-govern in 788 in return for annual payments, and in 800 the Aghlabids in Tunisia did the same. Nevertheless, on the whole, and especially for the era, for most people in the Caliphate, this was generally a peaceful time. Harun wasn't just a military or secular ruler, he was the religious head of the faith too. As such, one of his main ceremonial duties was to lead the Hajj. A duty he took seriously, undertaking it close to 10 times in his lifetime. Whilst out in the desert, he reportedly relaxed and drank ice with his drinks, shipped down meticulously from the Zagros mountains and kept cool in underground ice houses before being ingeniously shipped into the desert under straw in boxes. Thus, Harun enjoyed the height of luxury whilst crossing the desolate sands of Arabia. To his people,
that man knows how to live, doesn't he?
He wasn't just a sovereign, but a miracle worker who could essentially defy the laws of nature.
Wow.
When Harun returned from his campaign against the Byzantines in 806, he was greeted by bad news. A Khorasani Arab noble, grandson of the last Umayyad governor of Khorasan, had launched a large-scale rebellion against Abbasid rule. Harun, the only member of his dynasty ever to visit Khorasan, again went to war, arriving in the Far East in 808. Just as the rebellion was finally quelled, he died there in 809. Upon his death, according to the historian Al-Tabari, Harun left 900 million dirhams in the treasury. The state was incredibly rich. Yet
I thought they were going to say he left 900 children. Go ahead. Go on. Hey. Come on. There you go. I thought they were going to say he left 900 children. I was going to go, good Lord, I don't understand how that man could lead anything because he was too busy making kids. But money. Yeah. That's 900 million? That's a lot. 900 million is a lot anything. Right? Isn't that right? Get up there. Go. No, she doesn't want to. Back to the video.
Yet, nevertheless, Harun was the last caliph to go on the Hajj, and
he's an interesting guy, and I'm gonna try to find a video on him, because the little bit that I've heard, I just spit. A little bit that I've heard, I kind of find the guy interesting.
he was the last caliph to hold power over all of the Abbasid lands. After his death, it took just 2 years for civil war to break out. In the year 803, Harun al-Rashid called a great assembly to take place at the holy city of Mecca. As he did whenever he could, he just finished leading the Hajj, and as a result, princes and lords from all corners of the realm accompanied the Caliph that day, along with the potential successors to his reign. Like most high-ranking Muslims at the time, Harun had many wives and concubines, and the more astute in the crowd may have felt a sense of unease at the sheer amount of potential candidates for rule. The rules of succession were by no means concrete during this time, and just like most other places during the early Middle Ages, the death of a ruler nearly always proved to be volatile. Of course, when choosing a successor, blood and lineage took precedence over ability, and it was announced at the assembly that Al-Amin, Harun's son from his marriage to the noblewoman Zubaydah, would be made primary caliph after his death.
After the whole thing, after Muhammad died, why didn't, or maybe they did, why didn't any of these caliphs or whatever, why didn't they sit down and try to write out a is it a line of procession? Is that what I'm thinking of? Just the next in line, kind of like that. That would, and I'm only saying that because then you could avoid any potential conflict. But then again, that's not going to stop people if somebody doesn't like the next person in line. Line of succession. That's what procession? Yeah, it was secession. Secession? Succession? It's just a terrible brain day. But I was just thinking, before I stopped myself to correct myself, if the next person in line you don't like, and they advance up, what's to stop you from causing a coup to take over? Which then invalidates everything that I just said. Because you could, once you take power, if you're successful, you could just throw that rule right away. This is the new way of praising it. So maybe that was a stupid question.
Zubaydah was descended from the Caliph al-Mansur, thus making her a cousin of the Caliph and an especially prestigious bride. However, Harun also had another son in mind, a man who lacked the pure Arabic blood of his half-brother, though made up for it with his wisdom and intelligence, quickly becoming one of his father's favourites. In addition to his personality, the young prince could also call on the Persian dynastic links of his mother, well and truly winning his father's favour in the process. In an unprecedented new arrangement, on that day, Al-Amin was made primary caliph in the west, centering on Baghdad, and Al-Mamun, the more capable of the two, would help his brother by ruling the east, based out of Persia. Thus, when Harun died 6 years later, the new arrangement began. Al-Amin, with his Arab mother, Arab advisors and support from Orthodox Sunni Muslims, began ruling in the West. Al-Mamun, with Persian mother, Persian power base, and Persian advisors, and support from Shia Muslims, ruled the east. As these two young rival caliphs began their reigns, each aided by a multitude of ambitious courtiers and officials, it was only a matter of time before the first shots were fired.
Yep.
After the downfall of the Barmakids in 803, the way had been opened up for a multitude of dynasties and individuals, some of them eunuchs, to hold the reins of power. According to a number of near-contemporary sources, one of the main catalysts for the war was the desire of Al-Amin's vizier,
It's going to be a great time to pause the video, but I want to give it a little bit more, try to find a good spot. I don't want to just cut it off. This is a really good video.
Vizier, Ali B. Issa, to gain access to the tax revenues of Khorasan, and by 811 a colossal caliphal army marched east to put an end to Al-Mamun's reign and reunify the Caliphate once more.
Okay, that's where we're going to cut. Alright, well, this is a good video. I like this. And it's a lot. What I really like is that even though it's a, what are we talking about, an 83-year window, there's a lot of names here that I don't think, I'm sure I might have heard some, but so many I forgot. I've seen so many of these videos that it's difficult to remember all the names, but I kind of remember standout names along the way. So, in case you people don't know, there's a guy, his name was Khalid. I don't remember the rest of it. He's an unknown guy, but he was nicknamed the Sword of Allah. I gave him that name. And he was pretty good. A lot of people don't know about him. I'm trying to kind of push his name out there. I don't know. You should check into him. I think he's pretty good. So, I'm trying to change the narrative so I can get credit for it. All right. Well, if you want to donate to the channel, I got a thanks button. You can click on it and send monies, and then I say thanks, and you are thanking me, and I thank you back. If not, I'm still making videos. Give a thumbs up. That's awesome. That helps. Subscribe. If you've watched more than one video and you keep coming back, just subscribe. It's not going to hurt you, you know. And until next time, have a good day. Have a good night.